Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Round 4 of 5, live from Epic Loot here in Centerville, Ohio. We are Dayton Magic Club. I am Ryan Johnson. I'm in the booth with
Robert Holt.
and we want to thank you for joining us. What we have right now is local area level 2 judge Matt Farney playing against Russell Carolus. This is table 2. Both players are undefeated, vying for going undefeated into round 5.
Yep, so we are 3-0 at this point.
So I don't know what either player's on. 46 players in the room tonight makes it hard to really lock in what everybody's playing.
Right, and we don't have a deck list to go off of.
So we'll develop. That'll develop as we go along here. Certainly some interesting decks we've seen under camera tonight, and we're getting updated from our table spotter. About what is going on here. Oh yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, back in looks like I think 2010, Farney was I think he got second at an SCG Standard Open playing mono black vampires, if I remember correctly.
I think it was black red vampires.
Black red vampires. Okay, yeah. He was. I definitely remember him on vampires, and if I'm not mistaken, he wrote a tournament report after that and posted it to StarCityGames.com, so you could actually go out there and look up Matt Farney and see an article that he wrote regarding the tournament report. So
certainly a very accomplished player, a big part of the local community. Like I said, he's the area level 2 judge. Was part of the founding of the original Dayton Magic Club when we were at Wright State Magic Club at the student union at Wright State years and years ago. So accomplished and a long-time part of the scene.
It looks like Matt Farney, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there, is probably on Saltai of some sort, given the fact that we got a Yavimaya Coast and a Swamp on the board.
Yeah, I'm willing to believe that that is true.
And a Sylvan Caryatid means he's probably going to follow it up with a pretty good 4-drop. And Russell looks like he's maybe a little too early to call it. I'm not quite sure. It looks like we have Jess. I'm going to just go ahead and say Jess Guy Burn at this point. It could be something different.
Well, that is Murderous Cut Doomwake Giant Civic Wayfinder. So this is the black-green devotion type deck.
Okay.
With the Doomwake Giant, which is a big player in block.
Yep.
And certainly a very powerful Magic card. They was a little outclassed by the powerful endgame that something let's say like Blue-White Control had in the last format.
And Commune with I believe Commune with the Gods is the card that he's probably going to be running to search up creatures and enchantments.
Yeah, absolutely, and get that engine.
Yeah,
get that engine
and Commune with the Gods is important to point out that after you look at your top 5 cards and whatever you don't take ends up in your graveyard. So if he's running any sort of delve cards, I believe he's going to be able to take advantage of it.
So he took the Murderous Cut, which means he's more worried about his threats being disrupted than being able to answer his opponent's threats. So we'll see if his confidence is misplaced. We're seeing the Centaur Wayfinder
gonna get a land and bend a few cards.
Yep. Doing what it does best. Fixing your mana while filling up your graveyard for your delve spells. Really cool stuff. I'm a big fan of those like engine synergy driven decks.
Yep.
And this format definitely has some of them.
They seem to be delve engines. The delve engines seem to be really well.
Yeah.
Performing well. Commune with the Gods plays very nice with being able to find your enchantment creatures and just any creature in general, actually.
And I wonder if we'll see like a Sidisi. If there's a Sidisi
I would love to
engine
see
in this deck.
Sidisi,
This is a really sweet one. And certainly very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Although I wonder, it's a really powerful engine, but I wonder if it just gets outclassed by like just how big Siege Rhino is. You know what I mean? Like one of those cards that's cool, that's powerful, that has a shell around it that just doesn't quite match up well with some of the dominant things that the format is doing.
I agree. I do like the fact that it has the potential to be a mini Grave Titan.
Oh, for sure.
But it does require some setup.
No. Okay. I was excited.
What do we have there?
That's
is that a Whip of
Erebos.
Okay. A little bit of
so this is definitely a Sultai Dredge deck.
Yes.
That we saw some teams really work on, I know, for the Pro Tour. It was considered to be one of like the really like powerful synergy driven decks.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people abandoned it because of those same concerns we raised, that some of the other strategies might just be more strictly powerful. You
Yeah,
don't have to jump through all that. Like, you're jumping through a lot of hoops, and like if all that gets you is a cheap removal spell, and like you dedicate a lot of your deck space to filling up your graveyard,
right?
Where other decks they just like hit 4 mana and cast Siege Rhino. Like,
Exactly.
That's just like more powerful than what you're doing. So, but we'll see. I mean, there are a lot of big payoffs. The big
Commune with the
Flyer.
Gods actually gives you a lot of velocity, being able to find cards.
Oh, yeah.
And help your your delve spells.
Yeah, and it really depends on how dedicated you are to the dredge mechanic. I think a light touch,
And there we go. Siege Rhino.
Here we are. Farney has been sculpting.
Yep.
He's been setting some stuff up over there, and
Russell's
like, here's
Siege
Rhino. So we'll see what strategy comes out ahead here. If Farney can leverage his stock graveyard, he's counting it. We could see
we could see Farney just go ahead and drop Tombstalker 2.0.
Yep. Well, I think it's a really good Magic card.
I do.
I mean, Tombstalker is really good.
And the newest one.
What is it called? The name is escaping me right now.
Yeah, I don't remember.
We talked about it earlier tonight.
I know. But I do like the fact that it actually gets better as the game goes on, whereas Tombstalker, it just does what it does. It's a 5/5 flyer, but the newer one has the ability to start nuking creatures as you fill your graveyard back up.
Absolutely. We're activating Whip. We are whipping out Sidisi. And it's going to get several triggers.
I believe it only gets one trigger.
Oh, just one trigger
if
you... Okay, I see how that works.
Right, so just get one trigger, even though we mill 3 creatures or 2 creatures or whatever. But regardless, we're still making 2/2 tokens.
Yep, triggers again on the attack, of course. And it seems like a pretty easy block, but we get our value out of it and gain some life.
Of course.
So...
I like what I'm seeing from Farney's deck here. It's got a lot of synergy going on, but we're still running into the situation of can we deal with Siege Rhino effectively before Siege Rhino starts taking his game on.
I think we're going to see Treasure Cruise. Definitely would like a Murderous Cut. Murderous Cut, or any removal spell, really. And I think Murderous Cut is a pretty reasonable choice, but there's other ones that are available.
Yeah.
And Farney is in really good shape. That Siege Rhino is the only thing keeping Russell from just being way behind right now.
Exactly. I'm curious
Whip is really hard
how
to
many
answer.
Cards Russell has in his hand. I can't really tell from here. But I got to think that he's got some other stuff that's going to hit the board here pretty soon.
Sure.
And give Farney something else to worry about. Potentially another Siege Rhino.
Yeah. That's definitely the best case scenario if you're Russell.
Even if Russell is going Wingmate Rock here, I think Siege Rhino into double zombie is still a decent play.
Yeah.
As a Farney doesn't have really an effective way to block that.
That's true. Farney is definitely wanting Whip to do a lot of work for him here, which it certainly can do.
It's been a while since we've seen a 1-mana draw 3 in Standard.
Yeah,
so it's been about 5 years, or actually about 7 years since Laura when we saw Ancestral Vision.
Yep.
So
here's another Thoughtseize. He said, no, I got nowhere to put my hand. Doomwake Giant still hanging out there. What else do we got? Sultai Charm.
Looks like we got a Tri-Land over there on the right.
Yep.
Is that a Bioblight there, second from the left?
Yep. I want to take the Sultai Charm.
We got a Nyx Weaver. Actually, Nyx Weaver's really good card. Something that you don't see a whole lot of, but starting to pick up a little bit more in these these self-mill decks.
There was the self-mill deck at the end of the last format that I built and I enjoyed. Probably a little underpowered, but a lot of fun to play with Nyx Weaver.
I'm not sure, but I've seen it show up a little bit here and there in place of Courser. Now, I'm not sure if that's necessarily the strategy that Farney's on, but it does fit the same place on the curve that Courser does and provides a little bit more value if you're on the self-mill strategy.
Yep. So we whip out the Nyx Weaver and just swing in. So I'm going to block the guy that's not going to get exiled. You're going to take 6. So, winning the race right now is Matt Farney. Russell Carolus kind of back-footed by Farney's ability to whip pretty much at will.
You got to love any Magic card that says whip in it.
Yeah. Well, and he's not even doing anything like whipping out something enormous, right? He's just getting value out of it. He's not like whipping out
Farney
something
very well
huge.
could just whip out something enormous. It's very possible that he's got some giant monsters in that deck there.
It's very true, but we will certainly see. There's an Elspeth, which could certainly turn the tide here a little bit.
Was that 3 tokens we saw
Yeah, he made
there?
3 tokens.
And Farney, it looks like he's got roughly 8 cards in his graveyard. So, given any Delve spells, maybe another Treasure Cruise,
Sure.
or again, I still can't remember the name of the Tombstalker 2.0, but that would also be another good play here for relatively low converted mana cost.
Yeah, and I am interested in knowing if he has Heroes Downfalls.
Necropolis Fiend. There
Necropolis
we go.
Fiend. That's the one. We got there,
it.
guys.
We found it. So, thank you for waiting patiently, but the card is Necropolis Fiend.
Yeah, that's...
We still don't know if he's playing it, but that's what we've been talking about for the last several minutes.
Yeah, it'd be a good one.
Yeah, Necropolis Fiend would be very good at taking the game over. If he could get it into play, he could actually just pay full mana cost for it now. Actually, full mana cost minus looks like 1.
Wouldn't have to do much.
Yeah, and then he could use the rest of his cards in his graveyard to actually just basically kill anything that Russell happens to lay on the board. So,
chew up that Siege Rhino, fly over, kill Elspeth.
Exactly.
There's a lot of work.
Exactly.
So we'll see what his plan is here.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options. He's got almost a full grip.
Well, it's worth pointing out that Doomwake Giant is extremely good against Elspeth.
Yeah, and I've actually seen the new Summoning Trap. Again, that's another one of those standard cards. It's kind of...
See the Unwritten.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good with Doomwake Giant if you can hit 2 of them.
Yep. Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of talk about that being a relatively decent play. And,
ooh, that's good. That's a Murderous Cut. Doomwake Giant clears off the tokens from Elspeth.
Yep.
Murderous Cut kills the Rhino. That makes enough creatures to swing in and pressure Elspeth.
Right. Elspeth's in a little bit of trouble here, and again, Farney still got a decent amount of cards in his hand. Looks like 3 or 4, and Russell, I believe, also down to about 3 cards in his hand. And actually, he might have a couple more. He might be up to about 4.
Now we're going to tick Elspeth up again. I don't believe she has enough loyalty left to minus. At 3 tokens. Now the problem, of course, with getting tokens is that Farney is 1 enchantment away from just wrathing all those tokens away and finishing Elspeth off. Powerful card. Doomwake Giant's a very powerful card.
You refresh my memory on Doomwake Giant. Is it whenever you lay another enchantment? So it's got the constellation mechanic. Is that right?
Yes. Apparently, he made the tokens and then read Doomwake Giant that it's not just an comes into play trigger, but in fact a constellation trigger.
The constellation trigger. So any additional enchantments he's got.
And it only affects your opponent's creatures. It's a really powerful effect.
A disenchant would take care of it.
That's a Hero's Downfall, which will also do the job.
Yeah.
But there's Whip. So
Whip has been a problem in this game.
Whip is a very powerful magic
2
card.
zombie tokens off Sidisi.
Yep.
He's gotten some other utility out of Whip also, just being able to at least keep pressure on the board every turn.
Absolutely.
Given his self-mill strategy.
Definitely one of the big payoffs you get for playing one of these self-mill decks.
Yeah.
Is the ability to really turn on the full power of Whip.
Yeah, agreed. I completely agree.
Which we saw was a very good card with no synergy, just it costs 2 black mana. Yeah, exactly. But when you're dedicating so much of your deck space to stocking your graveyard with powerful effects.
Farney going up to 37 life.
Oh, what we had here was a Nyx Weaver sacking it using its second ability to return a card from your graveyard.
And it looks like the score is 37-9.
Yeah.
So again, Farney's in good shape. Still got several cards in his hand, and Russell's got to get something going here, or else he's just gonna let Farney get too far ahead. Not in life, but just in board presence.
Yeah, you know that you're in trouble when untapping with Elspeth isn't enough anymore.
Yeah.
You need to find something else because untapping with Elspeth is not going to do it.
Right.
There's a Doomwake Giant still in the graveyard. They can be whipped out.
Clear those tokens out of the way and swing in with your 2/2 zombie tokens again.
Yep.
And I believe actually Doomway John will go ahead and swing too because it'll
Yep.
have haste if he whips it back into play.
Cool deck. We've seen a couple cool ones under the.
Yeah. You know, we saw that Sultai deck round 1 that was doing some fun things with Ether Spouts and Villainous Wealth.
Now that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
That's a Johnny. A good friend of Elspeth's.
Yeah, Johnny will do some work to provide Russell the much-needed card advantage to match what Farney's been doing up to this point.
Yep. It also lets him get potentially Elspeth tokens out of Doomwake Giant range. Although I think that were I him at this point, you start digging with it, right? Like you just want to find more.
You know, at this point, making your Elspeth tokens a little bit larger is probably not going to get you anything. Looking at the top 4 cards of your library and revealing an aura or planeswalker.
Or creature.
Yeah, we all 3 of those. You know, at this point in the game, though, I'm kind of curious as to what creatures he could tutor up at this point.
Exactly.
Without just losing the Johnny and the Elspeth on the next swing.
I think that protecting your Elspeth here and hopefully grinding up to an Elspeth Ultimate is really the only way it's going to get you back in the game from a 28-point life deficit like this. It's just like big flying monsters made by Elspeth. That is a Bioblight.
Bioblight being an amazing play here.
Yeah.
I think Farney was holding on to that one for a while, just waiting for the right time to use it, and he definitely found the right time to use it. So.
Oh, that's a good play. That's a heads-up play. Said I'm going. He Heroes Downfalled his own creature to fizzle the Bioblight.
Yeah. So Farney had to target one of the tokens with Bioblight, and in response, Russell just decided to go ahead and kill it so he could keep the other 2 tokens on the board.
And without a target, it fizzles. Now. You're fighting a down and dirty guerrilla fight at that point when that's your play, but it certainly is a line to keep Elspeth alive another turn. And I think every turn you get to be Elspeth alive is a triumph at this point because that is your game plan.
That was a good response from Russell. You know, I would say a handful of players that would just miss that opportunity altogether and realize it after the fact. That was definitely a good catch by Russell.
Now Farney has just whipped out a Hornet Queen.
Yeah, we saw how powerful Hornet Queen was in round 1 when it was being straight up cast.
And here's another Bioblight.
And I gotta say, Farney's looking pretty good here at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Whipping out a Hornet Queen is probably...
Well, he's putting his opponent down to, looks like, well, he attacked a Johnny off. Okay. So I can keep Elspeth under control as long as there's no Johnny to pump the tokens.
Exactly.
And I think that's a pretty reasonable line to take there.
Yeah, so we're... The life point variance has gone up significantly.
Yes.
So Farney's now at 43 and Russell being at 9 still.
34-point life deficit. And you just got to start wondering, Russell's playing a mid-range deck, right? By definition, his spells only get so big. What does he have that can get him out of Doom Blast?
It kind of feels like Farney's. Obviously it's not a combo deck, but the synergy that is built into this delve mechanic, and being able to do the things he's done with Whip and Sidisi and bringing back a Hornet Queen, etc., etc.
That is a Wingmate Rock with no
raid trigger.
Just needs to get bodies on the table.
Yeah. I believe Air Elemental is almost better than an unrated Wingmate Rock. So you do get the life gain.
Activate Whip.
So
there's the Doomwake Giant. We've known about that one for a while. Clear those tokens off. Looks like we're going to get Elspeth out of here this turn.
We have an enchantment to follow that up with and trigger it again and just knock out that Wingmate Rock. It's -2, right?
It's -1, -1.
So okay, that's my mistake. That's my mistake.
All right. No, he attacks in, even with the block, said, I have seen enough.
Yep. I am done with this game.
And, that's certainly an example of a deck that can go over the top of a Siege Rhino. It's like, well, you have 1, 4, 5, that's great. Like, this is my whip of Erebos.
I'm going to whip out a Hornet Queen.
Now, I'd be surprised if Russell had a dedicated sideboard cards for this specific iteration of a delve deck, but certainly the delve mechanic, this style of deck generally is pretty well known.
Yeah, I felt like Farney was in pretty good shape the entire game, but the turn I was most impressed with was the Doomwake Giant Murderous Cut.
Yeah.
That turn got rid of some crucial creatures on Russell's side and took care of that Siege Rhino that was causing Farney a little bit of heartburn.
Absolutely.
And he was able to just kind of turn the corner there and
and really never looked back. From
Exactly.
that point.
Yeah.
Dude, Russell was on the back foot pretty much.
You know, even
consistently from that
even
point
you know,
on.
like you said, when you can untap with an Elspeth and not be in good shape,
Yeah,
your
that's
opponent's doing some damage to you.
yeah, absolutely. Now the bad news for Russell is that Farney almost certainly has dedicated sideboard slots for this Abzan mid range
Yeah.
deck. I don't know what necessarily is going to bring in. I wouldn't be stunned to see some despises.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think going up to 4 murderous cuts is probably not the worst thing in the world, because I think your biggest problem is Siege Rhino, and
Yep. And then the Planeswalkers.
yeah, of course the Planeswalker. So he's probably got some number of heroes downfall.
Yep. And again, maybe some. I think Despise is a really good card in this format that is defined almost entirely by creatures and Planeswalkers.
Yep.
And
Be fairly bad against your more aggressive decks, just because, I mean, it does take a threat out of their hand, but there's better things you could probably be doing on turn 1 and 2.
Right, it's really bad against the Jeskai decks, for example, that are creature light and spell heavy.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a rarity.
But when you get into these heavy creature, heavy Planeswalkers decks, Despise is an amazing turn 1 play if you're not doing anything else.
I was researching the format, and I think that one of the things that really jumped out at me as something that was true is one of the things the control decks are struggling with right now is the mid-range decks almost exclusively have a mixture of really powerful creatures and really powerful planeswalkers, and there's very few spells that deal with both. You have Hero's Downfall, but if they play Nissa, animate a land, and you have 1 Hero's Downfall in your hand, you're still losing. That's still losing proposition. But a card like Despise can break up,
Right, and it does it for very, just a single mana.
Absolutely. I also like Nullify, some of the blue control that's starting to play in the main deck. I like that a lot. So I know this is going to be a really creature-heavy format. I'll just play Counterspell, like just actual Counterspell. Oh, Farney, the blue in Farney's deck opens up to having Disdainful Stroke also, which could be. I think that card is really good.
Counter-target Planeswalker.
Yeah, and Siege Rhino.
Yeah,
like all the good cards, the really powerful cards, the payoff cards of being Abzan in Russell's decks, the Elspeths, the Ajani's.
Yeah.
The Siege Rhinos, all that, the Wingmate Rocks, all that stuff just gets destroyed.
I think one of the big things too out of Farney's deck is, they could go, punch for punch for several turns of the game, but once Farney casts that Treasure Cruise, he's able to just go up so many cards that it's going to be really hard for Russell to kind of bounce back from that without any kind of card advantage himself.
That is a really good point. And that's definitely a strategy we've seen be very successful in a lot of the Eternal formats, is my deck is full of 1/4 removal spells and efficient card draw. That's a classic control paradigm that we haven't really seen in Standard, with the exception of Sphinx Revelation.
Right,
in a while.
Yeah.
They've been really giving us less powerful card draw spells to work with. Every once in a while one sneaks through and you get a format that's completely defined by it.
Yeah, so you had the completely broken environment of Jace the Mind Sculptor, and then they backed off of any kind of relevant blue
and
draw spell.
was in that format too.
Exactly.
Like, ridiculous.
Let's not travel back that far in time, because we don't want to upset any viewers we have that might have played during that time.
That was a dark day. Oh man, Ponder. Ponder I think was really the real problem in that format. It made the blue decks sideboard so much better, play so much smoother. I mean, that's a card that is just an incredibly powerful format in every format that it's legal in.
Yeah, and you had something like Stoneforge Mystic that was able to, come down early and present a relevant threat, or early, and it was still a good top deck late in the game. And it's hard to find creatures like that anymore that are that powerful. At 2 mana.
The whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, even to the point where it was preemptively banned in Modern.
So this is an interesting format with a ton of powerful card drawing options. So we'll see how that shakes out. You have Dig Through Time, you have Treasure Cruise, you have Jace's Ingenuity, which is no slouch.
Yeah, I'm wondering, just kind of doing a little theory crafting here, what Farney's justification was. I'm sure he has a good one. He's a very good deck builder. I'm just curious as to why he chose Treasure Cruise over Dig Through Time.
Absolutely.
Given that Dig Through Time is able to find cards that are specific to a certain situation, whereas Treasure Cruise is just whatever's on the top of your library. So, be interested to hear what he has to say about that after the fact.
So that's a Caryatid. No play yet from Russell. And here we can see what we were talking about earlier in the previous rounds, where, like the Mono Red Heroic deck, if you're playing Mono Red Heroic against Russell's draw right now, like he's dead.
Right.
He hasn't played a spell yet, and you just
Yep.
can't do that against these fast Mono Red decks.
Right. There's a good chance he could have a removal spell, but when you've got a Courser on the other side of the board, or, excuse me, a Sylvan Caryatid, it doesn't really matter.
Yep. So we get the Dredge engine going. We see a little gas. There's a whip there, so the creatures he just hit, which looks like a Horniqueen and a Sidisi, are potentially very, very intimidating.
And we're going to do a little more milling.
Is that a Reclamation Sage? The very top card of the library there?
I believe so.
Yeah. Bringing that in, possibly it destroys opposing coursers. It's a preemptive measure against if you're worried about Banishing Light for your whip.
I'm not sure what else it would be good against in this matchup. Courser obviously being a big one. You know, if you can answer their Courser with a Reclamation Stage, you're in good shape.
You get to hit Courser and then have a little bit of a catch-all. Probably not very many of them in the deck, but it's a good whip target, I suppose. Looks like we're gonna do some whipping right here. Looking like we're reaching for Hornet
Sidisi?
Nope. No, that's Sidisi. Yep, you're right.
Yep, we got a Sidisi.
So with the trigger on the stack, we're going to kill Sidisi. So the mill still happens.
And I believe we've just milled a Horniqueen.
Yeah. So if you kill Sidisi with the trigger on the stack, the mill still will happen, but you don't get a the zombie. So Farney's engine is completely online at this point. He has whip. He's got a stocked graveyard, and Russell has not been able to really muster up much of a game plan yet. You gotta think he's wishing he had Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah.
Yep. Horniqueen whipped into play. Russell looking not wild about that happening.
We got to imagine Russell has something on his side, or
sure.
some
he's
tricks
got
up
a grip
his sleeve.
full of cards.
Full grip. Maybe struggling a little bit on mana.
Yeah, well, definitely that is definitely true. It's possible he just has like a bunch of like Siege Rhino, Wingmade Rock, Elspeth kind of draw, right? Where he was hoping that
he didn't have the Caryatid to back it up, or maybe
Farney's deck isn't particularly fast, so you just hope for a really powerful high end. Oh, we have Bile Blight for the. Oh, is that Bile Blight? Is that it's Bile Blight?
Yep.
Cleans up the tokens.
Horniqueen tokens.
It's effective. That made Horniqueen just a two mana or a 2 damage. Gain 2 life.
Looks like we're seeing a Windswept Heap from Russell. So now that he's got 4 mana, potentially he could we get some relevant threat on the board.
Absolutely.
Potentially a Siege Rhino, or I don't know, the Storm would be all that great here, but it would still be something.
It'd be something for sure. So. Get on the board, stem the bleeding a little bit, and hopefully your powerful, potentially game-ending bombs can kind of come online before Farney has a chance to really hit something else spicy.
Now, given what we're seeing out of Russell's deck, do you think it's possible that he could have a turn 5 end hostilities? To
that is
utter end.
An utter end for the whip. I feel like Farney was indicating by his action there that he may have had a disdainful stroke or a negate in his hand or something and tapped too low to cast it. Now Farney doesn't have a lot of action.
Still has a relatively good number of cards in his hands. Looks like he's got 6 or 7 there.
So. Yeah, and a stocked graveyard and plenty of guys, and there's another whip. So that is a good way to recover.
So it looks like what we're seeing from Farney's deck is pretty much just a self-mill whip strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like what I'm seeing from it so far. It's got a lot of good synergy to it, and it's playing out really well.
And you have your Nyx Weavers, which I know in the previous self-mill decks existed so that if you milled your whips, you could sack that and get your whip back. They tutor out of the graveyard.
Very, very good strategy.
So it's a way to play kind of more whips as you start dredging through your deck.
You don't mind dredging them. It actually might even be better to dredge them just because you can get them back. So
yeah.
And there we have.
There's Siege Rhino.
The ubiquitous Siege Rhino.
I feel like if Farney had not had that second whip, that Siege Rhino could have been really, really effective on this board. Even just a couple of turns to get some pressure on.
Yeah.
But it might just be that whip just outclasses it. I mean,
I
besides the fact that Farney did, in fact, have the removal spell for it, the Murderous Cut.
I feel like this game's been a little bit one-sided in Farney's favor, primarily just because of Russell's lack of mana production.
Yeah,
he's not been able to keep keep pace with Farney's land drops, and I think that's really hurting him in the long run, especially there after doing the Utter End. If he could have followed that up with a solid 5-drop, he might have been able to put himself back in this game.
Yeah, I agree. And he gave Farney a ton of time to sculpt and set up without having to defend, without having to commit any resources to defend.
Yeah, zero pressure.
Yeah.
Zero pressure.
It's an unfortunate time to miss a land drop, and he still hasn't hit a fifth land, excuse me.
Yeah, so we had the Utter End on 4, which was actually, I think, like turn 6.
Yeah.
And then he didn't follow it up with land number 5 to do anything relevant. So we got the 5th land now. We'll see if he's got a 5-drop that can actually turn this game around in his favor.
If he could have curved the Rhino into a Wingmate Rock, we could have seen some starting to really pull away.
I would love to see an instant hostilities here. I got to say he's probably not running it given the amount of creatures in his deck, but it would help out quite a bit. But you still have the problem with the whip. The whip's going to be generating card advantage every turn.
Exactly. We don't have like obs that have to whip back anymore.
Yep, but... no tricks. No trick. I think there's like one combo with it in standard, but I don't think it's a good enough one. So
I like Liliana quite a bit, as we've discussed. It's a fog. Well, Liliana, her minus is you search your library for any card, put it on top. It's a minus -2, I believe. And then her +1 is target player discards a card.
No, I believe this was Liliana of the Dark Realms, not Liliana Vess. Actually, Liliana of the Dark Realms is not even legal at this point, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Sorry,
it's
sorry, I get my Lilianas wrong. But, generally there's only one Liliana I care about, and the rest of them are just, additional Lilianas. So.
This is a good one, though. Really underrated for a long time in Standard. And I think this is the kind of format where she can really shine. You look at it here, she's going to search up any card, and then Farney either has to kill her or let Russell search up another card. So it's a Vampiric Tutor with a fog attached.
Yep. That's actually a good way to look at it. For 5 mana, you get a Vampiric Tutor, and you get a fog your opponent.
Yeah. So it's basically like a double Vampiric Tutor, as long as you were planning on searching up a fog anyway. That's like a lot of times that's almost worth a card.
Yeah.
So, and her +1 is actually pretty powerful. When you think of how powerful Liliana of the Veils +1 is, this one's not symmetrical.
Yeah, I just, I've never been a huge fan of Liliana the Vest. I was a big fan of all the Planeswalkers in Lorwyn, and I never really cared for it. And I got to think, in these colors, Abzan colors, is there a better Planeswalker he could be running in that spot?
Well,
it's given on the number of Planeswalkers in those colors.
It's almost certainly a one of, and it's certainly a big part of what Liliana does in this deck is search up the other Planeswalkers.
Okay.
Right, it's on curve to search up Elspeth.
Okay.
Rather than playing an additional Elspeth, you can play Liliana and this one out.
There's the End Hostilities.
There's an End Hostilities. So card we were wondering if he had.
And he did, in fact, have it, and I'm assuming that's what he tutored up with Liliana.
So you can see the power of it.
Yeah.
Especially now, imagine that Farney didn't have a way to get Liliana off the table there, and you could End Hostilities and untap Liliana and play a really powerful effect.
That brings me back to the old days of Lorwyn Future Sight, where you would cast Liliana and tutor up Damnation and just, take the game from there. So that's what we saw. So Liliana's still doing her thing, all these years later.
Whip is going to be a thing.
Whip's still a problem. We haven't solved that problem yet, so he needs another Utter End or, another way to remove the Whip of Erebos.
That was a whip for a Wayfinder to mill more cards.
Right.
To find more whip targets, which is just the best. Doomwig Giant for no value, just a big body and the potential to generate value later. Doomwig Giant, another source of card advantage in this deck, another engine for the card advantage in this deck. And some of the decks that play Doomwig Giant play Eidolon Blossoms, and this deck basically is playing Whip in that 4-drop slot.
Yep.
And it's really hard after seeing it in action for me to justify playing anything but Whip in
Yeah,
that slot in a deck like this
Whip's,
one.
Whip's been dominating these games.
It's been really impressive.
So I'm interested to see what Whip is able to do to finish this game off, given that that's Farney's main game plan right here, depending on anything else he might have in his hand.
So, 3 mana, probably not going to be a game breaker. Could be a removal spell for the Doomwake Giant. It's a Courser. That's a reasonable card. Can't quite make that one out. It's caught in a little bit of glare.
It's like
it's a Bioblade.
Yeah,
okay, alternate art Bioblade. Don't want it. Doesn't do anything.
Sea Drano.
Sea Drano a little bit better. I imagine we'd be happy to draw that one. Man, Sea Drano does a lot of work when we talked about earlier turning the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Sea Drano lets you go from being under the gun to getting out of range and then hurting your opponent enough to get in range of your finishers, but it's hard to do that when your opponent's at 34 life.
Looks like we just whipped back a Sidisi, and we're going to go ahead and mill 3 and generate a zombie token.
Yep.
And we're going to trigger it again on the attack and potentially... Oh,
nope.
that one's a whiff. But actually, though, that's not bad for Farney because it gets those 3 lands out of the way.
And he
obviously does not need any more.
He has another Doomwake Giant in his hand, it looks like. Oh, Murderous Cut.
And take care of the Courser Crewfix. Yeah, I actually liked what Sidisi did there, even though you don't see the presence on the board, but it frees up Farney's next draw to not draw one of those 3 lands, which is actually very, very relevant.
It's kind of like Goblin Ringleader in the Goblins deck in Legacy. Despite a lot of popular opinion, Goblin Ringleader never bricks because it either finds you goblins or it puts 4 lands you don't want on the bottom of your library.
Because those are your only 2 options.
Yep.
And I gotta say,
Russell is at 1. We know that his card he drew for the turn was a Siege Rhino. I don't see that being a ton of help.
It might buy him a turn. It is going to knock Farney down to 38.
And then we see a really sweet one, I think, out of Matt Farney.
Yeah, great decks today. We got to see the Sultai deck earlier that was doing some cool things with Easter Spouts. And
Farney had 2 Heroes Downfalls, another Doomwake Giant in his hand. Hit him.
When you're playing a deck and your main game plan, or at least what we saw, is mill yourself and use Whip to play your entire game, he's not casting cards out of his hand at that point. So he's got all those cards in his hand just generating over the course of the game that just take care of any threats that come down, generate additional card advantage through milling and whipping.
Yep.
So
I really like the fact that in this deck, Whip not only puts pressure on your opponent, but it basically draws a card worth of value every time you activate it. It's either Doomwake Giant, which is removing creatures. It's Sidisi, which is leaving creatures behind. It's Horniqueen leaving creatures behind.
It's essentially that Whip being on the board and him being able to mill cards into his graveyard before he casts Whip. It essentially turns Whip into his hand.
Yeah.
And then his actual hand he can use to either generate more card advantage or take care of creatures or Treasure Cruise as we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, very cool.
So, some very interesting things going on here.
I'm going to say we didn't see the most explosive draws out of Russell's deck.
No, the deck has the capability to, and it looks like he was definitely higher on the Planeswalker curve than we've seen some of the Fleece main. And
yeah, exactly. Definitely going bigger. Yeah. Definitely more of the Argilax Pro Tour style list.
And we may have actually found a decent trump for Argilax's list. A Whip of Variables, self-built deck.
Small sample size, but I was certainly impressed by what Farney's deck could do with its edge for sure. And there's not a ton of ways to disrupt it with good value in the format. And being one of the very few, and even that, it's not a card you're excited to have to play.
And given the ability to, even if you don't get your engine online early, it's kind of like, how Bitter Blossom works in Fairies and Modern. You don't always have to have it on turn 2. Even if you draw Bitter Blossom later in the game, it still helps the deck. It helps glue the pieces of the deck together, and you can do the same thing. It looked like from Farney's deck, with Nyx Weaver. If you don't get the Whip out early, it hits your graveyard. You can get it back later in the game and still start generating a card advantage to just kind of take over.
So. Absolutely. No, good stuff. Good matches. Definitely be sure to check us out. Round 5 coming up. We'll see what the final standings are looking like. A lot of the players that are undefeated will probably like to draw.
Yeah, yeah.
There's definitely good value in that, but
I
we'll
would I
see.
would enjoy seeing Farney's deck in round 5. How about
Yeah,
you?
I would certainly like to see that again. I wouldn't mind seeing some of that villainous wealth
Hmm.
that we saw earlier again. So we'll take a look. We'll find a sweet one definitely for round 5, and then move on to a little modern action
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
bonus at
yeah.
the end of the
Stay
night.
tuned. We'll be back in round 5.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for round 5 of 5 here from beautiful Centerville, Ohio at Epic Loot Games. Check them out, epiclootgames.com. 46 players tonight.
46. That's a good number for an FNM.
That is a solid FNM. We are in the very final round. This is table 3. Tables 1 and 2 could ID into prizes. This is table 3. Derek Dyer is 3-0-1, an unintentional draw. Derek Rodriguez is 3-1, so they will have to play it out because the double loss knocks Derek into pity pack range.
And, I'm not 100% sure what these guys are on. I've talked to Derek quite a bit, and I actually played against him a couple weeks ago, and I know he is on Mardu, Creatureless Mardu. We'll go ahead and just call
Mardu
it Creatureless.
Control, kind of. Thoughtseize should be pretty good against that.
He's running a lot of Planeswalkers. I know he's running the draw 2, lose 2, scry 2.
Read the Bones.
Read the Bones, yes. He's playing Read the Bones, so he's got a little bit of a way to shape his hand and kind of, once he gets that going on turn 3, he can kind of set up his turn 4 and turn 5 plays.
Looks like we saw 2 Sarkhan, a Lightning Strike, and we lost the Sarkhan to the Thoughtseize. I want to remind everybody that's watching, we are Dayton Magic Club. I'm Ryan Johnson in the booth with Mr.
Robert Holt.
And we hope you guys are enjoying the broadcast. We're having a pretty good time up here in the booth. Always a good time here at Epic Loot.
Always a good time in the booth.
Absolutely.
The standard metagame is shaping up to be an interesting one.
I agree. We've seen a lot of cool stuff tonight.
Yes, we have. Whip of Erebos doing some serious work.
We did, in fact, see that. If you didn't catch that, I would definitely check it out when our archives go live, because that was a really sweet one. That is a, what's it called? Help me out, Jacob. Jacob, by the way, a Bloodsoak champion. Jacob Ross, by the way, we haven't really called him out at all tonight. He is our operator tonight, as most nights. He is running the rig that keeps this broadcast live. He is updating our live totals. He's the one telling us when we can't quite make out what one of these new cards is. So we want to thank him. Couldn't do it without him.
Now, I know for a fact, Derek, even though we see a Sarkhan in the bin there, that he's got 3 additional 1s in his deck. So he's running a full boat on Sarkhan. And as you said earlier, he's actually running a 5th Sarkhan.
Yep. And Zergo Helm Smasher.
That is Derek's 5th Sarkhan.
That is a Mardu Charm being used as the instant speed duress. So we have Mardu aggro, or a more aggro build, versus the control build.
And this is probably the mode on Mardu Charm that you're not going to see as often as the 4 damage to a creature or making 2/1/1 first striking tokens.
I agree.
So,
but nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely put to good use here against a Planeswalker / control deck.
Now, Derek's, it's interesting, this Mardu control concept, because really in most of the control decks that people have been experimenting with, and I know I've been experimenting with them a little bit myself, the blue is like the worst color.
Yeah. You're using blue basically dig through time.
Yeah.
And like maybe Treasure Cruise if you want to go that route.
I mean, some of the counter spells out of the board are okay, and like Dissolve is like okay, but it's nothing really exciting if everyone's just playing to the board. If everyone's just playing creatures, you're not having to fight on the stack at all. Then the things that blue's traditionally good at aren't necessary, and blue's not very good at winning these on-board fights.
And if you can get some of the additional or some of the similar card advantage out of Read the Bones that you can dig through time, then why do you need blue?
Yep.
So maybe
just all the best 3 removal spell colors. So we saw this is a Brimaz. Haven't seen him tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
Underrepresented of the Pro Tour as well. No copies in the top 8.
Yeah, Brimaz has been a little underrepresented in the format lately, and you gotta wonder some of the decks that could run Brimaz might just go Mantis Rider or Rabble Master instead. And,
absolutely.
It presents a little bit more of a threat without giving your opponent much time to respond.
Absolutely, just a little bit faster, I think, is the appeal. That was a Crackling Doom, a card we've seen do some work under camera, taking out Brimaz. Crackling Doom, a cool Magic card.
Very cool. Very cool.
But Bloodsoak Champion, as we've seen before tonight, go in the distance here. Of course, Derek could have an utter end for it somewhere down the road or something like that. There's another
Mardu
champion.
v. Mardu.
Yep. Bloodsoak Champion versus Zergo Helm Smasher.
Yeah, we got the on the right with Derek's deck. We got a little bit more of an aggressive Mardu. Yeah, I don't know how aggressive he's going, but seeing Bloodsoak Champion into Brimaz,
Yep.
He's playing definitely a lower curve than Derek's 5 Sarkin
Yep.
Deck with him. I believe he's running Elspeth as well.
I think so as well. Yeah.
So definitely seeing the range that Mardu has.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
Both of these players,
and he has had enough. Double lightning strike.
You know, as much as I like that play there, I know for a fact that Derek is running Anger of the Gods main, and I'm wondering if it would have been
Jumped the gun a little early, maybe.
And, you know, he's a little bit under some pressure. 4 damage a turn is a lot to take.
You know, he wants to, like, another. If you're worried about Derek Rodriguez there playing potentially Stoke the Flames or
that's a
something like
possibility.
that, just trying to, you know.
If I'm not mistaken, though, I believe Derek has a Mardu Charm in hand.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe just making a couple tokens and you know, blocking those Bloodsoak Champions and buying yourself another turn to potentially
For example,
see Anger of the Gods.
Yeah. Rabblemaster could be dangerous here if Derek maybe overspent on his removal spells.
Yeah, and as we can see, Derek has an additional 2 lands floating, whereas he goes to swing with that Rabblemaster token as he enters combat. If he gets that far, he can bring a champion back from his graveyard.
He will not get that far.
He will not get that far.
Now, something that interests me is Derek Rodriguez playing perhaps one of the Mardu token strategies we've seen float around. I mean, Brimaz, Rabblemaster, these are token-producing creatures.
I guarantee you he's going all in on Butcher of the Horde if we've seen Brimaz and Rabblemaster. Yeah. There's got to be a playset, at least 3, I would say, Butchers in this list from Derek Rodriguez. I don't think there's any trouble that you're going to with running Rabblemaster, Brimaz, and Bloodsoak Champion. Yeah. Butcher's just a freebie at that point.
Derek appears to be out of gas at the moment. No play this turn. Now, that could mean, he could very much have a ton of removal spells.
My guess from Derek Rodriguez is maybe he's going to flash in a couple tokens off the Mardu Charm and bring back his 2 champions.
Yeah, that seems like a strong play.
And if he's on the token strategy, you might actually see a Raise the Alarm here. No. Looks like we're just going to go back to the draw stuff. And I'm guessing he's got, 3 cards in hand? What he's shoveling?
No, one of them was definitely a land.
It's interesting the way he's got his land stacked up over there. It kind of looks like an exile stack or an additional graveyard sitting over there off to the left. But it's an interesting way to stack the lands up.
So Derek Dyer under no pressure here.
And he's
going for Elspeth.
Never a bad play. We're probably going to see a Hero's Downfall from Derek at this point.
Sure.
Or an Utter End. Either one. I would guess Hero's Downfall maybe the double black might hurt with Brimaz in the deck, so it might be Utter End.
You certainly can't play around either of those cards, so no reason not to just jam it over here.
He is going off the top of the deck there. So it looks like we're probably going to see another land drop from him.
There's the Downfall. And that's it. No Bile-Blight or anything to clean up the tokens.
No, we still have 2 Bloodsoak Champions in the graveyard, which could come back and do some work later on in the game.
Sure.
Given the fact that Derek Dyer's at 9 life.
Absolutely.
Those Bloodsoak Champions are just a couple swings away from actually lethal if he can clean up those Elspeth tokens.
Going down to 7.
Now that's actually he's got a 2-turn clock if he can get those Bloodsoak Champions back in
Absolutely.
Play, so.
And Derek Dyer certainly has to respect the possibility of a hasty Butcher off the top. Scryland didn't like what we see.
I want to see a Mardu Charm or Raise the Alarm from Derek Rodriguez here. I want to see those Bloodsoak Champions come back in for some work. Just present the threat.
Have we ever actually seen tonight a Bloodsoak Champion get raided back into play? I don't think we have.
No, I think we've had a couple options or a couple possibilities for it. I just didn't think it came up.
Yeah.
So we haven't gotten to see the interaction between Bloodsoak Champion and Butcher at this point.
There's a Rabblemaster.
And if we get the Rabblemaster token and into combat, we are going to see a Bloodsoak Champion potentially come back into play.
Derek doing a really good job, or Derek Dyer doing a really good job of containing.
6 life, though. I'd be a little wary of being at 6 life against a Mardu deck, being able to present a Lightning Strike and Stoke the Flames to seal the deal.
Absolutely. Very much so.
It's potential, though, that Derek just drops a Sorin on his next turn and gets 6 more life out of those tokens.
And gets, well, I would say, pretty comfortably out of range.
Yeah. Being at 12, it's going to be hard for Derek Rodriguez to put up lethal at 12 life. Given the board state, that is.
Yes.
So.
We get in for 3.
I'm still just hoping we see an instant speed token generator here, and then maybe a wingmate rock or a couple Bloodsoak champions come back. So there's the Bioblight.
That's going to resolve. No counter spells in this deck. So Derek's first attempt at closing the game out has been shut down with a Hero's Downfall and a Bioblight.
Derek Dyer at 6 and Derek Rodriguez at 10.
Yep.
Derek Rodriguez still in decent shape here.
Absolutely.
Just need to find a way to attack.
There's a Butcher of the Horde. No tokens to give it haste.
No tokens to give it haste, but if it survives one turn, he's going to have some serious pressure to apply to Derek
absolutely.
Dyer.
If he can attack with it and get those tokens back, we start getting a life-linking Butcher of the Horde every turn, and that could be...
Oh, he could do lifelink and vigilance, I believe, out of... Well, not at the point of attacking.
No, but no, but not going to get the opportunity.
Nope. Derek Dyer looking through his graveyard.
That's got to mean only a handful of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's running Murderous Cuts. Oh, no, empty the pits. There we go. So he counted his graveyard to look to see how many cards he can delve and how many zombie tokens he can make off Empty the Pits. And Derek Rodriguez might be second-guessing his option to use Bioblight as soon as he did.
Sure.
So, now granted, he didn't have a whole lot of other options facing down 3 Sorin tokens, aside from maybe waiting a turn or 2. But now he's facing down, it looks like 6 Empty the Pits tokens, and followed it up with another Bioblight.
Yep.
So... Derek Rodriguez doing a good job of keeping Derek Dyer off of his...
Absolutely. That's 2 victory conditions we've seen from Derek Dyer's control deck.
And we're probably not going to see another Empty the Pits.
No, I believe I've spoken to him earlier tonight, and he said he was playing 1.
There's another Bloodsoak champion, which is actually a good deal for Derek Rodriguez. It gives him the ability to bring back the other 2.
Absolutely, and that is really dangerous to Derek Dyer, who is at 6 life.
Yes.
That's a magic number.
So, but Bloodsoak Champion, a great magic card. You know, it's got all the same capabilities of Gravecrawler without having the reliability of being in relying on tribal synergy.
Absolutely.
You just the only thing you have to do is be able to get a creature to its attack step, and you get that raid trigger.
Which Derek Dyer has done a good job of preventing.
He has
so
done a great
far.
job. Done a great job.
Utter End would be a pretty nice one to have. Were you Derek Dyer right now? But
Derek Dyer looks like he's got about 2 cards left in his hand.
One of them is what appears
Mountain?
to be maybe the last Hero's Downfall.
A little bit hard to tell with the way he's
shuffling
shuffling.
his hands. Yeah.
And Derek Rodriguez looks like he has 3 cards left in his hand, all face
All right,
down.
so we are going to get back our other 2 Bloodsoak champions. No.
Yeah, it looks like he's doing it after combat, obviously.
Yep.
So now Derek Dyer facing down 3 Bloodsoak champions, potentially
And
Anger
there's
of the
Anger of the
Gods, and
Gods.
that's going to clean up the Bloodsoak champions
And
permanently.
that's the end of those 3 Bloodsoak champions. That was a...
Well timed.
Yes.
Well timed. And he's casting a card I'm not 100% familiar with at this point.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's Liliana the Veil, or Liliana Vess. It's a...
Promo Lily.
Promo Lily.
Okay. Okay.
And again, like we were saying earlier, she's not the flashiest planeswalker around, but right now, very good.
Yeah, we've seen her pop up a few times tonight, and you know, we saw it last round where she hit the board, and essentially the only thing she did was tutor up End Hostilities, which was you know, pretty good. It still didn't get there, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah.
And we saw it a little bit earlier tonight doing a similar thing.
So if you're Derek Dyer here, what card are you searching for on an empty board? Are you looking for Elspeth or are you looking for Sarkhan?
I would say if I'm Derek Dyer, I'm probably just going to go Elspeth. I think if you go Sarkhan, you open yourself up to, you know, an Utter End,
Sure,
essentially.
it's a faster clock.
It's
but
putting all your eggs in one basket.
I agree.
Yeah, if you go with Elspeth, you make 3 tokens. He could have another Bioblight. Great, the tokens are gone, but I still have an Elspeth. So
of course, if Derek Rodriguez doesn't have an answer to this Liliana Vess, it's both. You know, you can get 2 victory conditions with it, and that'll probably be enough to put this game away with as resource light as both players are.
Thoughtsei's not going to do a whole lot of work there. The card that Derek cares about is on top of his library.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's see what Derek got here. I'm
thinking Elspeth.
I'm thinking Elspeth, yeah, or maybe
Sorin,
or maybe Sarkhan number 5.
maybe Zurgo.
Maybe Zurgo. Maybe he may just
Zurgo is a very fast clock here.
Let's just go ahead and clean the game up. So.
Yep. Nope,
Elspeth.
Elspeth. That's the safest bet for sure.
Yep.
I like that as the first target, and then Liliana can always get you a backup.
Now Zergo here would be pretty good.
I agree.
Pumping your tokens.
Soren would be good here to pump the tokens.
Soren would be great. Soren would be fantastic.
I like Soren a lot here, actually. It synergizes well with Elspeth while also being a good backup if he has an answer to Elspeth.
Or do you just go get another Elspeth?
Yeah.
Like, is Elspeth good enough to just go grab a second one
I think
here?
that's defensible.
Play the first one out, and if the first one bites the dust for some reason, just go grab another one.
Like, can you answer 3 Elspeths this game? Like, not many decks can. We've already seen 2 Bile Blights go
Ultimate
down.
1 Elspeth, cast a second one.
Yep. So that is certainly an option as well. So, Crackling Doom? Yep. Not getting much better. I can see pulling.
Yeah, at that point, Crackling Doom's
Well, it's a 2 damage burn spell.
Yeah, you got Derek down to 2, and all Derek Rodriguez has to do is top deck a burn spell.
Which we might see here. Crackling Doom
Crackling
number
Doom
2.
for the win.
For the win.
Wow, came back from his on his heels there with the Elspeth, the Liliana and the Elspeth, potentially getting another Elspeth, and Derek just kind of maybe needed to pull something to pull himself out of that life total range he was in. And
I agree.
I'm not sure that he has anything that he could have gotten initially. Pulling a Soren with the second Liliana Vess activation would have definitely
very
done it.
tempting. Yeah. So he was definitely in range. I knew he was at a dangerous life total.
So I believe we just saw double Crackling Doom for the win.
Yep, we actually did in fact see that, and a ton of Bile Blights.
Yeah.
So you're Derek Dyer, looking at what happened that game. You're playing against an opponent with a ton of burn spells, ton of removal.
A lot of good, cheap creatures. I mean, we saw Bloodsoaked Champion, we saw Brimaz, we saw Rabblemaster, and we saw Butcher. So he's carving out into Butcher, and he's got a very good possibility of just going 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Actually, I'm not sure what the 2 drop in that case would be, but regardless, he's got a good curve on Derek Rodriguez' side of the table, and Derek Dyer is just kind of playing catch up at that point.
Agreed.
He's got to keep his removal spells flowing. He's got to keep the disruption flowing, and he's got to draw some sweepers. And actually, that's a good position for Derek Rodriguez to be in. Running Brimaz in this case gets around Derek Dyer's main sweeper.
Anger the Gods, absolutely. So. We do want to thank all of you for watching. We have 22 concurrent viewers right now, which we really like to see. We do encourage you to keep checking us out. We will be doing this about every week, every 2 weeks, pretty consistently, and we're always striving to improve.
And for those of you that just tuned in, this is Robert Holt and
I'm Ryan Johnson, Dayton Magic Club.
Dayton Magic Club. We're on round 5 of 5 here at a 46-player FNM at Epic Loot in Centerville, Ohio.
So, Derek, they're both boarding quite a few cards.
Yeah, and so if you're Derek Dyer, you got to know at this point that you're the control player in this matchup.
Absolutely.
Both players are Mardu. Derek Rodriguez is definitely on the more aggressive side of it. So Derek Dyer, as a control player, what do you think he's boarding in here? I'm thinking in hostilities, maxed out.
Maxing out the sweepers. If you're not playing 4 Anger of the Gods in the main and you have more Angers of the God, you're definitely you're boarding up as many as you can get. Bloodsoaked Champion was a real headache that game. Your Planeswalkers aren't safe necessarily.
No, not from Hero's Downfall.
You don't have counter magic to protect them like a traditional blue-based control deck would. Could wait till they have 8-9 mana.
He's probably going to bring in, or he probably has access to, I would say, anywhere between 2 and potentially all the way up to 4. Read the Bones. I think 4 would probably be a little heavy.
Yeah.
And as good a card as that is, it's still not going to help with the aggressive starts that Derek Rodriguez can get given the 2 mana or the 2 life loss.
That Derek possibly has Nyx Fleece Ram in his board? And if he let's say if he did, would you bring it in here?
See, that's the problem with running a creatureless deck like this is that, so on one hand you have, okay, I bring in Nyx Fleece Ram, but now it's a lightning rod for any removal my opponent has.
Sure.
I don't bring in Nyx Fleece Ram, and I keep my opponent's removal spells from doing anything relevant. Now, granted, Derek Rodriguez's deck is going to be built to have his removal spells consisting of Burn,
yep,
Mardu Charm,
yep,
and Utterance Hero's Downfalls,
which are already good.
Yeah, so those cards don't really care if Derek has creatures. They're going to shoot Planeswalkers, and Mardu Charm can make some tokens.
So I would say, if I were Derek Dyer, the card would look attractive if I had access to it, because if it gets Heroes Downfall, then my Elspeth isn't getting Heroes Downfall.
Right.
And you're forcing your opponent to use a 3-mana removal spell to kill a 2-mana creature. So trading your turn 2 for their turn 3 is never a bad tempo play.
I've seen this out of Derek's deck before, just given some familiarity I have with his list. I actually think we're going to see Circle of Flame.
I'd love to see Circle of Flame.
It shuts down Rabblemaster tokens, it shuts down Bremoth tokens, and it just puts a complete halt to anything Bloodsoaked Champion can do relevant.
I like that quite a bit here.
And he can actually catch Derek Rodriguez off guard if Derek Rodriguez swings into Circle of Flame with Bremoth, and then Lightning Strike or Bioblight to Bremoth.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's going to be a very powerful card.
I think that's what we're going to see from Derek Dyer as a sideboard strategy.
His preferred anti.
Now, the one thing we need to see from Derek is some sort of life gain.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be crucial this final or this game.
Absolutely, and that's where I think that Nyxfloos Ram is appealing. Maybe not necessarily the most powerful card, but certainly good at buying time.
If not dealt with early,
these nickel and dime decks that are full of 2 and 3 drops, or 2 and 3 power creatures, I should say.
Now, do you think Derek Rodriguez probably sided out his Crackling Dooms at this point?
I would.
Yeah. They're good for 2 damage.
You can't be sure that he doesn't have some sort of creature in here, but we didn't see any indication that Derek Dyer was playing any of the traditional Mardu creatures.
Right. Now, Crackling Doom does do a good job of taking care of Sarkhan, even though we didn't see Sark. Well, we actually saw it get Thoughtseized out in the first game. So he might have left Crackling Doom in there just to deal with Sarkhan. But
that's possible.
Again, he's got additional options to take care of Sarkhan.
Derek Dyer have any Last Breaths?
Potentially.
Last Breath would be a good one here, too, I think. It answers Rabblemaster and Bloodsoaked Champion very effectively.
So we see a turn 1 Despise, and Despise is looking at a Sorin, a Sarkhan, and then 3 cards he can't get, being a Temple of Malice, Chaos of Quellos, and Hero's Downfall.
We're taking the Sorin. I like that.
Yeah,
Sorin comes down earlier,
yeah,
and it potentially gains life,
yeah,
both of which you don't want to see.
Right. You can deal with Sarkhan a little bit later, and even if Sarkhan does hit the board, it's probably not as devastating if you're the aggro deck, just because you want to hit their life total harder.
And also, 1 Hero's Downfall answers. Yeah, there we go. There's a Nyxfloos Ram. I like that quite a bit here.
The sheep is out.
1 Hero's Downfall answers Sarkhan.
Yep.
Sorin leaves behind a 2/2. They can be disruptive to your game plan. So.
Yep.
Nyxfloos Ram is going to do its job here. Every turn it sticks around is just 1 more point of damage. I mean, if Derek had gained 1 life that last game, I think he would have won it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Derek was definitely in a good position with that Elspeth and Liliana the Vest to set up for the final win. He just happened to be a 4 life and got double Crackling Doom.
Yep. So, 1 point of life.
I got a feeling that Derek's probably going to be able to outpace Derek Rodriguez at this game, just because. He's got the Nyxfloos Ram. He's playing the control deck, and we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen a relevant threat come out from Derek Rodriguez, even on turn 3.
That can be the danger when you're sideboarding, when you're the aggro player, is you can overboard and disrupt. I'm not saying he did necessarily, but the temptation can be there to bring in more answers and then disrupt your amount of threats that you have. And your answers you're never going to be able to out-control the deck playing Anger the Gods and Elspeth.
4 lands probably going to see a Butcher, and I would be very surprised if Derek Dyer did not have an immediate answer to Butcher.
Well, actually, we knew there was a Hero's Downfall.
That's true, yes.
Derek Rodriguez ran that out into that Hero's Downfall. You can't play around Hero's Downfall. Sometimes you just have to jam into it and then deploy another threat.
Yeah, and there was
Chandra, which we did not know necessarily that he had access to.
Aside from Read the Bones, that's going to be another constant source of card advantage for Derek Dyer.
And a really good way to keep Bloodsoaked Champions under control.
Yep.
They can't attack through the Nyxfloos Ram, and you can keep them under control so they can't swarm around it.
Yep.
I like Chandra quite a bit. They can't block, not super relevant, but
if we could just find a way to give that sheep, +1/+0,
just a little bit,
just an upstart chipping away at his life total.
Sorin.
Yeah, Sorin would do a good job on this on the Nyxfloos Ram. Start getting some damage in there.
Yeah, this game is rapidly getting out of reach for Derek Rodriguez if he doesn't start deploying some threats and very soon.
I mean, if his only option in the first 4 turns of the game was to run a Butcher straight into a Hero's Downfall that he knew about. I got to say that he's not packing a whole lot of heat in his hand.
Nope. Elspeth, or not Elspeth, Chandra reveals a Hero's Downfall, which has no target, so it would just be exiled, which is not a great card. You don't necessarily want to see that card get thrown away like that, but...
You know, if Derek Rodriguez had anything relevant on the board, that would have been a great flip from Chandra. But in this case, you know, Derek doesn't have anything. You know, there's worse problems to have.
Yes.
There's worse problems to have.
So now we have Sarkin. He is going to serve in.
And I would imagine he's going to get immediately met with... No. We're going to go ahead.
I thought I saw Hero's Downfall on Derek.
I thought I did too, and he might have missed the trigger. He might have just let it, or the activation. He might have just let the activation happen and forgot about doing it in response. So
yeah, you can't let it get into the combat phase. Yeah. Jacob, thank you, but we know that it's indestructible. We're saying that
there's time to respond.
But
that's correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hero's Downfall in response to the
ability.
Yep. Okay.
Brimaz, a little outclassed.
Yeah, Brimaz, for the price tag that card carries, does not look too good in this situation. I love the card in general.
I do too, but
it hasn't found a home yet.
I don't know that it stacks up particularly well in this format where all the 4-drops outclass it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it cannot attack into Cursor or Crewfix profitably. Yeah. You get the token in there, but that's it.
That's
the 1/1 token.
So man, I just don't know. It's a very good Magic card. It just might be kind of in one of those weird limbo states that can occasionally happen with very good Magic cards.
It might not actually ever find a home either. You know, it's not found a home in Legacy. It shows up as a onesie twosie occasionally in Death and Taxes, and it's not really done anything in Modern. So I would imagine that price tag's going to drop eventually.
Yeah, you just feel like it should almost have to. Although there's that black-white tokens deck in Modern that I like quite a bit, that you can get some Brimazes in there.
Yeah. The Brimaz is great on the curve and black-white tokens.
Yeah, and Hero of Bladehold. That's a Sorin. I imagine we'll probably be casting the Sorin.
Yeah, I don't see him not casting Sorin. His opponent's tapped out, and he's got the mana to cast a Sorin and just... Now, I would probably just go ahead. I don't even know if I'd make a vampire. Well, I would. Yeah, I'd make a vampire here.
Now, it's worth pointing out the lifelink lasts until the beginning of your next turn, which means he could actually put a token on the sheep and give it lifelink, which would make attacking into it pretty miserable.
Yeah, that'd be a 1/5 sheep.
Yeah.
And Brimaz is not getting through that. And actually, the Brimaz token would just straight up die.
Yeah.
In this case, and Sorin would live through a Brimaz attack. So. Derek's life total is not really in jeopardy, so I think I would, if I was playing Sorin here, I'd probably get a little bit more aggressive with it. You know, go ahead and get the creature on the board.
Absolutely.
Force the removal spell in the Nyx Fleece Ram, and that forces the Brimaz into attacking into the 2/2 vampire. Yep. You know, Derek hasn't lost much at that point. So.
He did plus though.
Yeah.
So he
took I think both of them are very good plays.
Yeah, I agree. So it looks pretty good if you're Derek Dyer here.
Yes.
This is kind of what you want to do. You just assemble the soft lock of a bunch of synergistic planeswalkers. Derek Rodriguez needs, more Heroes Downfalls would not be bad. Is that a bestow? It is. We are bestowing the Herald Torment, which is pretty good here. You can assassinate the planeswalker of your choice.
I think I would go with Sorin here.
Yeah.
You know, Chandra does draw you some cards, but Chandra's not making 2/2 flying.
No, you really can't beat Sorin if he's active for too many more turns. So now Derek needs a removal spell, and he's still going to mop up the 3/3 flyer that's left behind.
Right.
He gets over at 26 life.
I like Herald Torment here.
I do.
I really like what it did.
There's a ton of 3-drops in Derek Rodriguez's deck, though. We've seen Rabblemaster, Herald, and Brimaz.
So we're stretching the mana base a little thin there with double white, double black, and single red.
Yep.
But, you know, it hasn't seemed to be a problem so far.
I agree. That's a Chandra 0. Reveals Magma Jet. Or Magma Spray, I'm sorry. Not super good here.
No, depending on what Derek has in his hand, it might not even be relevant at all.
Yeah.
What's the plus off of a Herald Torment on the Bestow?
3/3.
So it's 3. Okay.
Yeah, they always give their power and toughness.
Okay. So that is a pretty big brain loss.
Yeah.
So that could potentially be actually it is going to be a problem for Derek. He's got to find a way to deal with that effectively.
Yep.
Before he gets out of hand. I think an Utter End would actually do a pretty good job.
Utter End would be pretty good.
It would take care of the Bestow creature, leaving Brema's back to having to fight through a Ram.
Yeah, it's a Liliana on a Derek Rodriguez there. Crackling Doom.
Crackling Doom deals with half the problem.
Yep.
Doesn't deal with the flying half the problem, which is going to be an issue for Derek's Planeswalkers.
It is, agreed.
So Utter End would have definitely been a little bit better in that situation, taking care of the underlying problem being the flying.
Yeah. Oh, so, of course, End Hostilities would have been uniquely good there, as it destroys the creature and all permanents attached to it.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. End Hostilities has a little added bonus.
Yep.
Even though it's a 5-mana Wrath.
Yep. But it's not.
Occasionally, that 5th mana
buys you something.
Could be worth it.
Now, Liliana could also be quite a problem with tutoring out some additional threats.
Yeah. So what do you think Derek Rodriguez has in his deck that he would be tutoring up at this point? Do you think he's going to find something to deal with Chandra, or do you think he just says, I'm not too concerned about Chandra, I just want to get some more guys on the board? I would think with Derek Dyer being at 27...
Do you really feel like you have to get the Planeswalker off?
He's got to deal with Derek's underlying source and card advantage.
Yeah, I agree. Butcher the Horde I don't hate as a hasty way to get Chandra off the table.
Well, yeah, the haste could be a problem, though, because I don't think he wants to get rid of that Herald Torment.
No, that's true. That's fair. Although it's worth pointing out that currently he's losing a life every turn, and Derek Dyer is gaining one every turn, which is unsustainable.
Very relevant. 2-point life.
And Chandra can start going to the face if he has to.
Does he have a Bloodsoaked Champion in his graveyard?
No, they all got.
Is that? I think that was last game. Is that top card a Bloodsoaked Champion?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay. No.
There's a Hero's Downfall for he decides to go after the Liliana, which I agree with. Liliana, if you get to downtick again, is going to find something better than that Herald Torment for sure.
Yes, that's very true.
Reminder die on top of the library.
Herald Torment on Herald Torment.
Yeah. Got a Whip of Erebos?
I believe it's a Whip of Erebos.
That's going to be a challenge. Other End is
Whip it.
whipping out a Butcher.
Butcher's going to get some. Butcher's going to get in there for 5. This actually brings this game a little closer in range for Derek Rodriguez. Now.
Absolutely. Now, the Butcher killed Chandra, which we talked about. Something you just have to do at this point. You're too far behind.
Yeah, you can't allow Derek to keep having that.
If Derek was at
that extra
10,
card every turn,
that's one thing. But at 27,
yeah,
you're just not going to end the game fast enough.
And how many cards do we think Derek has in his hand there? It looks like